in Salford, didn't he, before he went over to Leeds as a young teenager. So good luck to him.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. So the Castleford Tigers hooker Jacques O'Neill has signed a 1-year contract extension. So the 21-year-old, who's been at Cast since he was 16, made 12 Super League appearances with the Tigers last year after making his debut. O'Neill has played a further 5 matches this year.
Yeah, good luck to the young hooker there. And in the final piece of Super League news, the Kind Horse rides back into town for Hull Kingston Rovers as Jimmy Kindhorse and Rowan Milnes have returned to Hull KR from their loan spells at York and Bradford respectively. Kindhorse, who's 30, joined the Championship club on a season-long deal for this year and scored 2 tries in 5 appearances, while Milne was one of the massive group of Bradford youngsters that joined Hull KR ahead of this season, but the Rovers let him stay playing to get more experience at Bradford, but it didn't come to pass, obviously, with the way things worked out. But they've brought bodies back in,
Yes,
which is important, as we all know at this stage of this season, having bodies available.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously links with parent clubs that it makes it total sense that they go back. I wonder if you'll see other Championship and League One players doing it on a more systematic basis as squads get thinner at the top level. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, because some squads don't have a strong academy system to bring players in, and also those young players that might be in and around squads haven't had any game time, have they? Because there's no reserves, nothing else. So it might be sometimes, if you think bringing an experienced player, it's just what level of fitness some of those players are going to have would be the question mark for me to bringing them in. But yeah, I mean, we all know about Jimmy Kindhorse. He's been around a while and will always do a solid job. He's kind of a 6.5 out of 10 player, kind of, isn't he? He rarely has a bad game, and he doesn't often have a spectacular game, but he doesn't let you down very much. What about Milnes? Because now we might actually see him play in Super League. So the young standoff, what do you make of him as a prospect?
He's got potential. He's very. He felt a bit physically underdeveloped when he came into our team. Still very young. He played a lot last year. And looked very good. I think a lot of players, a lot of people will have seen him in the cup game against Leeds last year, and he was excellent in that match. He's got a potential. He was good for us early on this year, and he played all our early season matches. He's got a chance. He's probably a better prospect than Joe Keys is, I would say.
He's a lot younger than Joe Keys, isn't he?
Talking about 2 players. Well, yes, he is. He's got time on his side. So yeah, it's an opportunity, and we've seen that this week with a few ex-Bradford KR last week. So yeah, it's good for him.
Yeah, let's move on to talk more Championship and League One then, shall we, Alan? With the big story this week out of that level of the game.
Yep. So the RFL will continue to work with those Betfred Championship and League One clubs who are keen to return to action earlier than the scheduled start of the 2021 season, after an agreement that it's not feasible to arrange a one-off competition this autumn. So initial discussions have already been held about the possibility of amending the formats of the AB Sundex 1895 Cup to allow for a number of rounds of regional group fixtures being played over the winter, which could include rounds being played on Boxing Day and New Year's Day, before reverting to a short knockout format next spring, leading to a Wembley final on the day of the Challenge Cup final, which was central to the creation of the competition in 2019. No great surprise about this in terms of the number of teams that actually put their hat in the ring. Yeah,
we were down to 4, weren't we? At the end of it all. Which isn't enough to have a meaningful competition. But this seems like a halfway house kind of proposal, in that they're kind of looking at an idea to give basically expanding the AB Sundex 1895 Cup, aren't they? That's what they're talking about, expanding it and playing part of it as a pre-season competition, but having that then roll through to the knockout phase.
Yeah, and it means that you've got meaningful fixtures around Boxing Day. I like matches at Christmas. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but they tend to be popular in the areas where this competition will be played. So that is, it kind of works in both ways. It gives you a revenue stream, or a more sustainable revenue stream earlier on than you might have thought.
Yeah.
And it gives you can quite easily build a format that kind of works with that. So it allows you to play, a game at home on Boxing Day or a game at home on New Year's Day, assuming that we can have crowds in the depths of winter. So yeah, I'm positive about it, and it seems like it's a sensible thing to do. Scary thing to say about the RFL, but it seems like a sensible step.
They've had to be pragmatic, haven't they, and move things around. I don't think the idea of that the 125-year cup, or whatever they were going to call it, was a bad idea.
Well, it was a good idea.
Yeah, it's just it didn't have the support because of all the other realities of it that clubs didn't want to have to face up to at this stage, really, because ultimately these clubs are all chasing the dream of the Super League, and that's why no one wanted to play in this tournament. They didn't want to jeopardise what could happen next year. So, financially and on the field, and clubs made that clear with what they came out and said, didn't they? They basically were happy to write off this year. So this gives them something that means next year is kind of got more to play for.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, meaningful Boxing Day matches and kind of Christmas matches. I like that idea anyway. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Good stuff. Right, let's flash through a load of signings and re-signings and that sort of stuff then. And if any jump out, we'll give a nod to them. But most of them are re-signings, so there won't be much to say, I don't think. But we'll start up in Cumbria. Whitehaven have announced the re-signing of Chris Taylor on a 2-year deal. Taylor, 26, made his debut for the club back in 2014 and has made a total of 136 appearances, scoring 40 tries.
Oldham have announced the signing of prop Martin Reilly on a 1-year deal. Reilly was 24, made 5 appearances and scored 1 try in 2020 for Dewsbury.
Featherstone Rovers have confirmed the signing of young Leeds Rhinos player Harvey Spence. The halfback has joined the club on a 1-year deal after impressing for Featherstone when he played for them pre-season against York. So, veteran halfback Anthony Thackeray signed a new 1-year deal with Sheffield Eagles 1995 Cup in his debut campaign with the club. And the Eagles have also announced the re-signings of Aaron Brown, Paddy Burns, James Davey, James Glover, Isaac Farrell and Greg Bird. Where is it in Sheffield this week? Yeah, well, I think we've got more Sheffield stuff to cram in later on, actually. Centre Ian Thornley has signed a new deal with Lee for 2021. Thornley, who's 28. He's only 28. He feels like he's been around for
Never. Never. 38.
Yeah. He scored 16 tries in 32 appearances for Lee in 2019, having previously had a spell with them on dual registration back in 2013. He also played in Challenge Cup final in 2013, didn't he? Before spells at Hull KR, Salford and Sale Rugby Union.
So Lee have announced the re-signings of Jordan Thompson and Ben Helliwell on 1-year deals. Thompson returned to Lee in June 2019 from Hull FC, while Helliwell joined the club from the London Broncos ahead of this 2020 season.
Swinton back rower Taylor Brown has signed a new 1-year deal with the club. The 20-year-old came through the junior ranks at Warrington and joined the Lions last autumn, making his first team debut in their cup tie against Lee Miners Rangers this year.
York have retained the experienced forward Danny Washbrook for next year.
And they've signed other experienced forward Danny Kermond from Wakefield Trinity for 2021. Kermond has has nearly 300 career games and 97 tries to his name so far after starting out back in 2005 for Featherstone before spells at Huddersfield and then his 9 seasons at Wakefield. That's, I know he's right at the back end of his career now, but that's a big name for York, isn't it? It's kind of following what we've seen from over the last few years where they've bought experienced forwards from Super League.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, I think Danny's still got a few miles on the clock, even though, 15 years ago, that's a long time ago. Long career.
In the back of my head, whenever Danny Kerman's mentioned, no matter when, what context, however, I just remember that picture of him getting his ass eaten out from years ago. And so I'm passing it forward into everyone else's minds. That's a real thing that happened.
Yeah,
isn't it?
thanks a lot, Matt. Who's to say what's real and what's not real? This could all be a fantasy.
It could have been. I suppose it could have been someone's photoshopped it. But that picture was real. I didn't make it up in my head. There was a picture. Yeah, there was a picture. Yes. It's not one of your dream sequences. No. Whitehaven have signed back rower Liam Cooper from Widnes on a 2-year deal. The 23-year-old came through the academy at Saints and spent time on loan at Whitehaven, Sheffield and Halifax before joining Widnes ahead of last season. York have signed halfback Morgan Smith from London Broncos for 2021. The 22-year-old made 25 appearances for Warrington before joining the Broncos in 2019, going on to play 17 games for the Capital Club, so plenty of Super League experience in that young halfback. Yep. In more League news, they've announced the signing of Blake Wallace and Jamie Ellis for next year. Wallace, 28, has been with Toronto since 2017, scoring 48 tries in 57 games and winning promotion from League One to Super League with the club. Ellis, who's 30, returned for his second stint with the Centurions, where he scored 2 tries in the Northern Rail Cup final win over Halifax in Blackpool. And Tom Andrews says, being a decent player for us in his 2 spells, superb kicking game, wish him luck in the rest of his career. Derek is really getting the gang back together. Yeah, I mean, Ellis is like, I guess, the headline one in some ways. He's the experienced guy. It's sort of his rugby league roots, really, isn't it? That sort of area. But Blake Wallace, to me, was the standout one from this, because Blake Wallace is like a Toronto original, and he must not have much confidence of Toronto existing again, and not, and must be done with the whole process. But he'll be a cracking player to have at the championship level, I think, with his skill set and his experience. He's the kind of player that it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd ended up in the back end of a Super League squad next year that wasn't at Toronto. Do you know what I mean? Because of his versatility. Yeah. The kind of player that you might have thought would be a good bargain, but yeah, I think you're right about Toronto. I think he's who hasn't? You can totally understand why people have seen fit to take their own steps of not getting paid. Although at Lee is not guaranteed to get his contract torn up when they don't get promoted next year, of course. Yeah, frying pan to the fire, yeah. Featherstone have announced the signings of Callum Field, Joe Summers and Jacob Doyle ahead of the 2021 Championship campaign. Former Wigan junior Field joins from Lee, whilst youngsters Summer and Doyle joined from the Castleford Academy. Summers was the Castleford Academy Player of the Year in 2019, so some talent, obviously. Halifax have announced the signing of halfback Connor Robinson on a 2-year deal. Robinson, 25, returns for his second stint at the Share, having featured in the 2015 season from Hull KR. France international hooker Anthony Marion has signed a new 2-year deal with Toulouse. So Lee standoff Martin Ridyard is to leave the club and join Championship rival Swinton after more than 2,000 points in 250 games. Ridyard, who's 34, is the third highest point scorer in the Centurions' history, making his debut in 2009, which was the first official game at Lee Sports Village, where he had the honour of scoring the first try. 2009 seems like later than I was expecting his debut at the Centurions to have been, but yeah, it's certainly been there a long, long time. Yeah, and it's a piece of the old Derek's band that's actually breaking up. Well, that's it, because he did splinter away, didn't he, for a year at Fev, where he ended up at Huddersfield, but he couldn't hack it in Yorkshire, and he had to go back to Lee. But yeah,